Hi everyone, welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. It's a Kipco British Champions Day special, which means just 6 races, 5 group races, 4 group 1s, and we finish up with a Balmoral handicap as well. It's a fabulous day's racing, and to guide you through it all, Steve Jones and Charlie Post join me. Hello Steve, how's things? You coming here in good nick?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Yeah, thoroughly looking forward to Champions Day. So yeah, all good.
Charlie, you must be very much in the crossover to jumps mode, but you've still got one last hurrah on the flat to get your teeth stuck into.
One last hurrah. A couple. I mean, we've still got the Breeders' Cup and things like that, Tom, that I enjoy watching. But yeah, very much it's exciting time of year. Pardon?
Look out, Breeders' Cup as well. He doesn't just break in jumps horses for fun. He loves the flat as well.
Oh well, you've got to, haven't you? Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Ascot, it's a quality card. And looking forward to tomorrow. Yeah.
Obviously, the feature race, betting wise, we might be a bit light on it. Although there are some opinions going down there, but elsewhere there's going to be some decent price horses going up. Let me remind you about talking of jumps versus flat. Jumpers to Follow podcast part 2. It's out there already, and we're going to put out again ahead of the showcase meeting at Cheltenham next week. We're 4 from 4 on the Jumpers to Follow podcast, so we had 2 different podcasts. So 8 lots of selections going up, and all 4 horses that have run so far have won. And I think only one of them are odds on as well. So Charlie's horse won at a decent price. So they're well worth following. Get all those horses in your trackers. That's exactly what I've done. It's the last week of the charity bets, because it's the last week of the flat season proper. That's the £25 bets we have on the charity bets that we put up, the best bets. There's £1,000 guaranteed for racing welfare. Like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and head to insights.matchbook.com for all of our podcast bets, and that is across all podcasts as well, Premier League and NFL too. Right, let's get stuck into the feature. First of all, we're going to start with the Kipco Champion Stakes. It's got Baid at 1.25 at the top of the betting. I mean, I put Baid up as a lay in the Juddmonth. I'm not going to do that again, because that was just silly. Adair 8.0. For last year's Derby winner. Baybridge 18.5. My Prospero 55. Dubai on 100. And Royal Champion 110. Charlie, first of all, that's just a sign of how good Baid is, because you've got Adair 8.0. You've got Baybridge 18.5, who's, I remember when he won at Sandown, which is where I am today, he looked a proper horse. How are you playing this, Charlie?
Yeah, completely, Tom. I'm going to play Baybridge in the place market, definitely. Like you say, we go back to Sandown at the beginning of the season, and he was being sort of heralded as the next big thing. I mean, things didn't really. I mean, I thought he ran fine behind State of Rest, and you know, it didn't really happen for him in the Eclipse at Sandown. But it was, I don't know, it was kind of a messy race. They all finished in a bit of a heat. I just think, yeah, going back to that Sandown run where he won so impressively, if he can bounce back to that level of form, something's got to finish second to Baid, and I suppose you're probably looking at it. Are you going with Adair or Baybridge? And just at the prices, I've come down with Baybridge. So yeah, I'm just going to play him in the place market. I think, and I hope Baid is unbeatable. I mean, it'd almost be a real shame to see him get beat on this, his sort of last race course start. So fingers crossed he gets the job done, and Baybridge can chase him home.
Steve, why for you isn't Adair the most likely horse to finish second to Baid? Or maybe he is, but you just think price-wise, Baybridge is the selection.
I think Baybridge is a lot more solid than Adair. We've only seen Adair once at Doncaster last month. Now, that doesn't bode well for me for a horse that you want them to come into it. But he was apparently a bit like you were in your youth, a bit of a chubster at Doncaster. In fact, he was pretty much very overweight. Well, you've not seen the photos of Tommy at the races at the Hog Roast? I mean, you wouldn't believe it.
Brutal.
No, that's got to be one for the podcast sometime. I'd like to see that. Yeah,
you wouldn't believe it. A little chubster holding the horse in one hand and the pork roll in the other.
Can I just say, right? This was at Warwick when my dad's first horse my dad ever had, and the last as well. And it won first time out of Warwick, and I was a 15 stone 14-year-old, and yes, I had a hog roast that day, but obviously wasn't stood in the winner's enclosure holding the horse in one hand and a pork roll in the other. Those two things didn't happen at the same time. Just like to point out.
Apple sauce going everywhere.
Yeah, and crackling. Oof. I still remember the crackling from that day.
Anyway, that's what Adayar was like last time. And he's beaten two horses. I know Mazakela was, what was he, fourth in the Derby or something, but he was beating horses that over a mile and two that he should have been beating. And I just think over this distance, even on the softer ground, that he's gonna struggle to have the pace, I think, of a horse like Bay Bridge, who I think the reason why he hasn't perhaps lived up to his early season promise, where he was devastating in the Brigadier Gerard, and then ran okay at Ascot and was disappointing when favourite for the Eclipse. I mean, that's the thing. He's favourite over Verdani and Mishrif and Native Trail. And I just purely think it was the fast ground. I think this horse brings his knees up a long way. And Sir Michael Stout clearly realised that his race was going to be the Champion Stakes, and he's got his ground. I think it'd be perfect. I don't think it's going to be desperate ground by any means. It's just probably going to be proper autumn, soft, flat ground. And that makes him very, very interesting. I mean, he's not going to beat Baid if Baid runs anywhere near it. But I just think that he's the standout to be second. And I think he's a really nice horse. And he's been trained in a very similar way to Baid, because William Haggis and Sir Michael Stout are patient trainers. And I think there's a lot more petrol in the tank in Bay Bridge coming back from 3 months off. So, which shouldn't be a big problem, because he won first time out in his last 2 seasons. So, in fact, when he's returning from breaks of days in 3 figures, he's won all 3. So this is a case for saying he's very good when fresh. So I think he's an excellent bet in the place market. I really do.
And were you backing without the favourite as well? So place bet and without the favourite. Yeah,
I think that's a good way to go. I'll judge on the prices and which is the better value. But yeah, I think it is a good race for place betting. The 9 runners with. You would hope that you could rule 3 or 4 out straight away. So I think it's a very, very good bet, to be honest. I think I can see why people might be interested in My Prospero at big prices, because the 3-year-olds have got a decent enough record in the race. And he did earlier in the season. Obviously, he was very unlucky not to win at Ascot in the St James's Palace, and has since won on easy ground in France, but he's coming back from a break as well.
So you've riled me up now, Steve. You've riled me up to have a go. So if we can come back to the top of the betting, there's Bay Bridge 18.5, Adayar 8.0. Baid is 1.25. Do we think he's going to trade bigger than that in the run? Definitely. Out of stall 1, I definitely think he will. If William Haggis was sitting down trying to work this race out before the draw was made, I think he'd have gone, what I really don't want is Baid drawn 1 and my other 2 horses drawn wide. And that's what's happened. Because it hands some sort of advantage to William Buick and to, who's on Bay Bridge? Kingscote or Moore?
Yeah,
Kingscote. It hands some sort of advantage to them from 4 and 6 to be able to know where Baid is the whole way. And that's the one horse they're trying to get beat. So what does Jim Crowley do out of 1? He's not going to say, I was speaking to George Baker about this last night, he's not going to go left hand down straight away, is he, out the gates? I was watching back Al Manzoor, who won this from stall 1. And he did get the perfect split to open up, but there was a point turning for home where he was 3 back on the rail and you were going, whoa, is this going to open up all right? So I think it complicates it enough for Jim that he's going to have to do something. And there's a huge chance that he's going to trade bigger than 1.25. So I'm going to put Baid up as a lay to back. And I'd put it in at something like 1.5. That's all you got. Just the fat chat's got me riled, Jonesy.
Yeah, but you're looking good now, Tommy.
But Bide as
Racing's #1 pin-up.
a lay.
Do you think he will be that far back though, Tom? How do you think he's going to ride him, Jim, tomorrow?
I think he will. So Adayar will come out. William Buick is going to want to sit in front of Bide, and I think he's going to want to sit with almost Adayar's arse where Baide's head is, if that makes sense, if he can. I think that Haggis is going to want My Prospero. He's going to want one of his horses to go forward, I think, and have some sort of a say on what happens up top. Who else is going to go forward? Probably Stone Age will be up there, do you think?
You would imagine so.
He's been used as a pacemaker, though, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So it's
he has.
a bit of a red herring.
Maybe they'll ride him differently. Yeah, yes, I think that Jim is going to want to sit too wide, and I don't think he's going to be able to. And I think that there's a chance he will find himself 3 back on the rail, because he's not going to want to. If it's a real test over this trip, that is going into the unknown somewhat. So I don't think he's going to want to massively force the issue. But you can't ride a horse like Bide for luck, can you? You can't come back into the winner's enclosure having finished second and got no run and go, I didn't quite work out on the day, but it's Bide. So I suppose he's going to want to be active out the gates and maybe look to sit too wide. But if he can't get there, I just think stall 1 is not ideal. He wouldn't have picked that. He'd have picked 2 to 9 over 1, I think. And so I think it's worth taking advantage of the fact that he's 1.25 on the biggest test to date, and I'm going to lay to back for fun, because that's what you can do with the exchange. Yeah. Where do you think he'll sit, Charlie? Where do you think his ideal position is?
I mean, like you say, it's a real. I suppose if there is an interesting story to the race, it is how it's going to play out for Jim Crowley. I mean, and like, this is the sort of day where it is huge pressure on the rider, isn't it? Everyone is expecting a sort of coronation and a perfect ending, and it's not the ideal scenario. Like you say, we're probably going to have slower ground than he's really encountered, certainly over this trip. There's stamina that he's going to have to confirm even more so than York. I think he'd like. If he thought the horse was definitely going to relax and do everything right, I think he'd love to just follow the pace and sit in the box seat. Whether he's going to be not confident enough to do that, but whether he's going to be ballsy enough to take that chance, because of course if he does get lit up and then travel too strong, it's the last place he wants to be. So yeah, I suppose there is a chance he is going to sit probably 3rd back on the rail if that's the way it plays out, and in which case he's going to have to hope for the splits at the right moments. But I would imagine if he is down the rail, the first possible chance he can get when they sort of turn up from Swinley Bottom and race up the hill, he's going to try and maneuver off the rail, you would imagine, wouldn't you? So that when he turns in, he's mid-track and he has options to go inside or outside, wherever the split's going to come. I wouldn't think he's going to want to turn in, boxed him down the fence and have only one option open to him, and that's hoping it opens up in front of him or down the inside.
Yeah. Also, because we've only got 6 races, so I want to delve slightly deeper into the quality of this race versus last time, Steve, if we can. Last time he beat Mishrif by 6.5 lengths, easy as you like. This is Mishrif, who isn't as good as he was, who was beaten 2.5 lengths in an Irish Champion Stakes off the back of it when disappointing, and beaten 18 lengths in an ARC. He beat Sabuska a 100 to 1 shot by a further 2.5 lengths, and then his stable companion Debana was a short head back in 4th. I'm not crabbing his performance on the day, but how much a better race do you think this is?
I mean, Mishrif went into it in form. That was the thing. What he's shown since. I know he blew out in the King George, but he'd only been beaten a neck when unlucky in the Eclipse. So he wasn't beating up a horse that had completely lost his form. I just think that it's easy to take a dim view of that form because he was such an impressive winner, and that's what he's done throughout his career.
Mishrif went into it having been beaten 11 lengths in the King George.
Yeah, but previous to that, he'd been beaten a neck in the Eclipse.
Well, yeah, but he won the Saudi Cup 3 years ago. But that was 3 years ago.
Yeah, and the argument then
was only in July.
But Steve, the question is tomorrow a better race than York?
if you look back on it, possibly because he's beaten them up and you can pick holes in it, would you be saying that on the day?
We've already got him out to 1.26, lads. That's a great. Keep going. Maybe 1.3.
I mean, you forget that Native Trail was in there as well. I mean, Native Trail was a Guineas winner who'd again finished beaten half a length in the Eclipse.
I suppose what I'm trying to get at is there any way you can look at his price and say that's justified? There is a way you can say it's justified. Is there any way you could look at it negatively and say, has he really earned that sort of price, and question it, or are you happy with that, Steve?
Well, I think he would have to get into all sorts of trouble to go out to 1.5 that you're hoping for him to go out to. I just don't see that happening, to be honest. I think Jim Crowley is although he's in stall 1, he's in a very advantageous position because he's on by far the best horse, and he'll have a plan, whether it goes to plan or not. But I think you can overthink this. Are those other jockeys thinking, oh, well, we've got to box him in? And I don't think you go into with that. You want to try and get the best position you can, not continually looking for the favourite and trying to get him beat, and then realise that you finished 7th when you could have finished 4th because of it. I don't get that. I just think he's an exceptional horse that has got exceptional gears. The way he went through the York race, I mean, was just Jim. I know it opens up so much at York because they come down the middle, but he could have put him in anywhere he wanted at any point of the last 3 furlongs.
I do think, though, that it is exciting because I think, you go back to Adeo, that's a King George winner, Derby winner, 4th in an arc. If he is back at peak form, he does present possibly the strongest test that he's faced, certainly this season, since he beat Palace Pier on Champions Day last year. And again, Bay Bridge, if he can get to that level of Sandown earlier in the year and show that he is as good as what he's been talked up from home and on reputation, I do think it's exciting. As in, potentially he does. He could go out, and Bide, I think, will win, but he could go out posting a career best.
I think he has. I think if he wins this as well as the Jubmont, because I think this is a better race on paper, I think it will be. Yeah, I think he'll win. I just like you. I think it's almost, it could pan out more exciting than the market has it, and that's what I guess I'm looking to exploit. And against Adea, he's on a very strong stayer at 10, and given where William Buick's drawn, that could just hand not an advantage to William Buick, but in terms of respectively where they're drawn, that hands some sort of onus to him to sit ahead of him and make sure it doesn't turn into a crawl and pounce, because then Adea is stuffed.
The thing you're missing with Adea as well, he was very free. I know he'd run in the Arc last year, but he was incredibly keen in this race last year. Well, if he does that this year, then William Buick's got far, far, far more problems than Jim Crowley has.
What I would say, this for Adea was definitely an afterthought last year.
William Buick absolutely.
He was chasing the championship, William Buick.
But he is dropping in distance.
Yeah.
And
was he over the top last year? I would argue. I mean, he comes in here fresh. I mean, and he was beat 3 lengths under what ended up a very aggressive ride in the Arc. Maybe more because Adea wanted that than William Buick did. But you'd think drop back to 10 furlongs, and you'd imagine, I mean, there is some rain forecast, but you'd have thought it's just going to be nice ground rather than horrendously testing. He's surely going to ride him aggressively and try and stretch Bide out.
Oh, I'm excited. Right, good. We spent 20 minutes on this race because I think it is a really exciting contest. For all, we've got a 1.26 shot at the top of it. Really exciting Kipco British Champion Stakes. Okay, let's move on. Trushan. Producer Dan's ready. He's like, come on, lads. God's sake. Trushan 2.9. Elder is 3.75. Waterville 5.3. Coltrane 13.0. Bigger prices the rest. Steve, who do you fancy and why?
Well, I think the most likely winner is Trushan. Obviously won the race the last 2 years. And if that Trushan turns up, then I think he'll probably make it 3 on the bounce. But he was beaten at 2-9 in the Doncaster Cup when, even though he had his ground, I think he was feeling the fact that he got a bit jarred up maybe at Goodwood on fast ground, because all summer when everyone's been in their shorts and loving the hot weather, Alan King must have been pulling his hair out, not just because he's Scottish, but because this horse, he was just hamstrung every turn, and even ran him in the Northumberland Plate on the all-weather because he missed Royal Ascot, and that was a great performance in the Northumberland Plate, but he just was sort of forced to run him at Goodwood to try him on the good ground, and there was clear, although he wasn't given the greatest ride at Doncaster because he's held off a long way off the pace off a steady gallop. I'm not so sure that that he was letting himself down at Doncaster totally. Well, it certainly wasn't the same horse. So I want to take him on a little bit just because of that. I've got question marks over the form of the St. Leger with Elder Alderov, and Waterville is just an insane price off the back of that Irish Cesarovic win. I know it was quite remarkable that he came from all the way back, but there's no way this horse should be so short in the betting. And when you consider that Ryan Moore didn't ride Waterville in the Irish Cesarovic, he rode Wordsworth. So they clearly thought that one had a better chance. He finished in midfield, but he was drawn very wide, Wordsworth. And he had to come down the middle of the track. And he's a horse that stays really, really well, Wordsworth. He's just a galloper. And I know he didn't stay in the Queen Alexandra over 2.6, but I think this softer ground, 2 miles, is absolutely ideal for him. And if you go back to last season, Wordsworth was second in the Grand Prix de Paris to Hurricane Lane, finished in front of the likes of Alenka, and finished third in the Irish Derby to Hurricane Lane, finishing in front of the likes of Mojo Star and Max Swinney. And this season, he's been a bit hit and miss, more probably miss, but he's finished only 3/4 of a length behind Princess Zoe and Quickthorn in the Sagaro Ascot on fast ground, which I don't think is him. And when you consider this horse is a full brother to Kew Gardens, who won this race a few years ago, I think Wordsworth is way overpriced. And I'm in a race which is, again, the place terms are good because there's only the 8 runners. If we all stand their ground, Wordsworth is what? Is he 34.0 or something?
He's a big price. He's a big price. What Wayne says, Ryan Moore couldn't do the weight on Waterville, mate. But
is that right? So I do apologise then. Well, but there wasn't. I
don't know that's 100% unless that came out, because Ryan can do 8.7 and Waterville was 8.9. So I don't. I listen. Thank you, Wayne, genuinely for giving.
Yeah, I didn't realise that was the case. I don't
know that it is 100% the case, only because Wayne, you might be completely right, but I didn't realise that. But from the figures I can see, it looks like that is within his lowest. But anyway,
but he ran a lot better than his finishing position in the Irish Cesarovic, and that back form I think makes him very interesting.
Cesarovic when it's at home, Steve.
Sorry.
The Cesarovic, it's very
the Irish Cesarovic.
Pasta or pasta? Anyway, the Cesarovic to some, the Cesarovic to others. Wordsworth, win and place, Steve. Anything else to add?
No.
Or to add? No. Charlie and I are with Trushan. I don't want to take him on. He's not sure. Listen, Charlie, I think this is a great price about Trushan. He was given too much to do last time. And yes, I think he was feeling the ground, or I think he was remembering Goodwood. But I think he's well worth having on side here in a race he's won the last 2 years. I'm surprised he's the price he is. Happy days.
Completely agree, yeah. As in, I think 2.75 or whatever he is on the exchanges is really backable and exciting. You know, the run behind Kyprios and Stradivarius at Goodwood was excellent. Maybe he was feeling it slightly at Donny, but like you say, I think he just ended up way too far back. And I'd be amazed, knowing the way Alan King is, if he'd be running him if he genuinely thought that there was sort of lasting effect from Doncaster, and therefore, you know, he was 2.0. I think, you know, last year when he won this, and I think if you take that Doncaster run out of the equation, he would be 1.75, something like that. What do you think, Tom? You know, as in, so yeah, I think
easily, and should be, but equally, he was beaten at what was it, 1.3 last time, so that is a concern.
Yeah, but I think you can pick holes in plenty. Like I agree with Steve. I think the Waterville race, you know, in Ireland was spectacular on the eye, but I'm not quite sure that the form amounts to him being as short as he is. Eldorov, you know, there's no doubt he could be a coming force on this staying scene, but you know, he won a St. Leger not that long ago. It's a quick backup. And again, the form might not amount to much. And the fact that, yeah, we can back Trushan at odds against, I think is fantastic. Yeah. So I think he's a really good bet.
I'm with you. So 2 for Trushan and Wordsworth for Steve. Let's move on to the sprints. And top of the betting, you're going to have Creative Force, I would imagine, for Charlie Appleby and William Buick, last year's winner. Just moving on, you'll see that the prices you can see for the on screen for the long distance cut, they're pretty close together. There's not much spread there, so it's a well formed market. Creative Force here, same 5.6 to back, 5.8 to lay, 6.6 Rohan to back, 6.8 to lay, Kinross 8.0, Art Power 9.0, Perfect Power 12.5, Tenebrism 16.0, and I wonder if we can go down to Castle Star 23.0. So those are my 2. Tenebrism, I think the stiff 6 will really suit her. She's a bit of a cold and pounce filly. That's what we saw at Newmarket last year in the Cheveley Park. And it's a bit like we saw last time on a straight 7. Not last time. That was disappointing around a bend at the ARC meeting. But the time before that, she was good at the straight 7. I think a stiff straight 6 will suit her, held up off a strong pace. And the other one I think is way overpriced is Castle Star. Jamie Spencer rides the straight course very well. He got very unlucky in the Flying 5, albeit he wouldn't have won. And I do think 5 is too sharp for the horse, but a bit of cut, back over 6, lightly raced this year. 3-year-olds have got a decent record in the race. Big price, win and place. Just want to mention Lewis's comment because I'd missed it. Lewis Smith says Alan King was 0 for 57 on the flat August, September. That's interesting, Lewis. Thank you for that. And Trevor says Rohan bolts up. So there you are. Do either of you 2 agree on Rohan? No. Steve, you're with Art Power.
Yeah, I am. I like Art Power, who went off favourite for this race last year and ran really well to finish 4th. But the draw just did him in because Creative Force beat Glenshield, beat Minzal 5-2-4, and Art Power was in stall 20. And that was a big negative on the day. And it might be, again, the horses might well, on the far side, might well have more of an advantage, and that counts against the likes of Creative Force and certainly a few others like Naval Crown and Kinross that are very high. And if that's the case, Art Power, who goes from the front in stall 8, be able to get over quite easily, get a nice position, and he's a really nice horse when he gets his ground. And obviously he hasn't had it very much this summer. He is only run the 3 times, but last time at the Curragh, he was every bit as good as he was in that same race, that Group 3 last year. So I think he comes into it a fresh horse, which I think is important. I think he's got his ground, he's got the draw, and everything seems in place for a big run for me. I like his chances. And if you go back to last season, he wasn't far off the best, especially when he does get soft ground. He was 3rd to Dream of Dreams in the Diamond Jubilee, or Platinum Jubilee as it is now, at Royal Ascot. And he's a very likeable horse who, because he hasn't run much this season, might have just got a little bit forgotten.
Okay, Trevor says you definitely need a low draw tomorrow. I'd heard that they railed off the far side before you hit the course proper, so it will encourage them to race down the centre. I'd have no confirmation of that, but that's
they narrow the track for this meeting, don't they?
They do anyway. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. But I'd heard that they'd railed off the so you're not always racing up against a rail, if you sort of see what I mean.
Okay.
You might be a bit more towards the middle when when you join the main straight. But again, I haven't had any confirmation of that. I don't think it'll make a huge amount of difference. You do tend to want to be middle to far side. My two are drawn middle to near side, but their big price is Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can see the case for Rohan, and I nearly came down with him. I think he's got an excellent chance. I think he 4 from 5 at Ascot, and he loves the track, and he deserves a grade 1. He's been running very excellent all season, and I just thought he was quite, for a horse that hasn't won a Group 1 yet. I just thought he was short enough, and I mean, I came down with Kinross. I mean, the draw could prove to be a factor here, so maybe that's a negative. But if they get rain overnight, it'll suit him. I've been with him quite a lot this season, and he got a deserved Group 1 last time at Longchamp. But he has proved effective over 6. He ran well at Ascot behind Naval Crown. He's only beaten 2 1/4 lengths. And I just think he's horse on a roll, and I love horse with confidence really high. And 17, it is a factor possibly. But I think he'll probably, he's not an out-and-out 6 furlong specialist, so it's not like he's going to blitz and run. So hopefully he can slot in and maybe end up a bit more mid-track. Frankie on board, and like I say, I just think he's a quality performer. I think he can still be effective over 6, especially a stiff 6 like Ascot. And if they do get some rain overnight, it's really going to help his chances even more.
And he absolutely bolted up last time as well. That was a very good performance.
He looks like a horse that's growing with confidence, and he looks like he's getting better and better at the moment.
Definitely, yeah, he was very good last time. Move on to the fillies and mares. So this is interesting with Emily Upjohn at the top of the market with the hood on for the first time. She looks like she needs it off the back of Ascot and the King George. 5.0, Eternal Pearl 6.6, Mimikyu 8.0, Sela Rosa 8.0, 11.0, Ashada, Sweet Lady 14.0, and the Team Steam is Stay Alert at 14.5. Right, Charlie, you can make the case principally. I personally just wanted to be against Emily Upjohn with the hood on for the first time. I thought she was an unsteady prospect, and I didn't know she should be at the top of the betting. For all I like her, but I thought Stay Alert was a big old price. She's improving.
Same again, I'd be negative. Emily Upjohn. I mean, Eternal Pearl is a potential improver, but no, I wouldn't say made heavy weather again. The job done at Newmarket last time, but. She certainly, the further she went, the better she looked. Sela Rosa, I was very much with at Longchamp over a mile 6. She's dropping back 2 furlongs, and I thought she had a hard enough race there as well for a quick turnaround. But of course, William Haggis is trying to win a championship, so you'd imagine he's just rolling out as many of these horses as he can on a day like today. Mimikyu, again, I just didn't think was quite good enough. Ashada has had an in and out sort of season, so. Yeah, Stay Alert seems to be really sort of improving, settled really well at Newbury. Being a fraction keen had been an issue at Haydock behind Free Win before that. But yeah, she seemed to switch off really well and got the job done nicely. And 3-year-olds have an excellent record in this as well. I think they're 7 from 10. And again, it just was me coming down with the horse. I thought it's very much on the upgrade. We'll handle a bit of cut in the ground as well if we get rain. And it was, yeah, for me personally, it was more that I could pick holes in plenty of the ones above her in the market, and she's here on the back of a recent win. And like I say, she seems to be getting better, settling more with racing, and yeah, I think she can bridge the gap up to this level.
Steve, what do you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie hit upon the most important thing there. I think she settled really well last time when she won. That was Newbury, wasn't it? Or was it Haydock? It's Newbury, yeah. And she's certainly got a soft ground pedigree, a pedigree that a lot of them stay very well. So I don't think going back to a mile and a half on soft ground is any problem at all. She will need a fastish pace, I think, but I think she'll get it. Sweet Lady likes to make the running, or certainly did last time, and is drawn the widest. So you'd think that that Sweet Lady will have to be ridden to get an early position out wide. And I think Mimikyu is in stall 1. The last time Rab Havlin rode Mimikyu, I know she was held up last time in the Park Hill at Doncaster of a mile and 6. when Rab Havlin won by 6 lengths on her at Newmarket, albeit in a handicap, he made the running. So from stall 1, I think he's going to have to go forward a bit more. And of course, Emily Upjohn, the stablemate, will also want a decent pace to aim at. Frankie won't want to be trying to wrestle with her. So I think they'll go a decent pace. And I was so impressed with her at Newbury, Stay Alert, because she got into all sorts of trouble. And although she only won by a neck, she did extremely well to win by a neck, because she was blocked several times and she had the gears to do that. I think she's very classy, and I don't think that stepping up to a Group 1 race is pie in the sky at all. So, and like Charlie said, 7 of the last 8 of what this race have been won by 3-year-olds. So the weights clearly have the potential to suit her as well.
She was Steve's best bet on that day. Put up at a big price. She shortened up a good bit. And we're all with Stay Alert here, so hopefully she goes well. I think Charlie's saying winning place for all of us there. Move on to the QE2. Penultimate race we're going to be previewing in Spiral, 2.14. Modern Games, 5.4. The Revenant, 7.4. Jadumi supplemented, 9.4. And then we're into the much bigger prices, of which I don't think anyone has got them on side. So, Steve, first of all, you're with Modern Games. Charlie Appleby said that they'll walk the track beforehand, and if it's officially soft, he won't run. But I don't think it's likely to be. I still think there'll be some good to soft in the going description, definitely.
Yeah, it's just a price-based thing, really, because although in Spiral has been really impressive, I think considering the profile of Modern Games, she's a bit too short when Modern Games is it's such a big price. And I do get it. The softer ground is a little bit of a worry, but she was fine on it in the French Guineas, which was good to soft. I dare say it's going to be a bit softer than it Ascot, but it was soft again at Chantilly in the French Derby when Modern Games was 3rd behind Verdani, which is good form, albeit beaten 5 lengths, but from a terrible draw. You can't be drawn that wide in the French Derby and hope to win. So Modern Games did really, really well to get across from that wide draw and get prominent. And I think that's possibly the way Modern Games will be ridden, and get a nice position. And hopefully the ground won't be against Modern Games, because he's got really good form. And the only real disappointing run this season, I thought, was when 5th in the Prix Jean Prat at Deauville. But that's 7 furlongs, and he's much better at it. The mile is about the bottom of his distance range, and he's got that second to Baaid in the Sussex Stakes. So he's a classy horse. Who's shown he can do it at the top level. It's just the ground is a little bit worrying.
I don't think it'll be excuses ground for him, because I think it's probably going to be, might be good to soft in places. So I think he'll be all right. On the French form, though, I don't think it was at the times at Deauville and Chantilly were Deauville and Chantilly were fast times. Chantilly was a fast time. I think French soft is the equivalent of our road. So I don't know how much I trust those going descriptions, but I don't think it'll be. It doesn't look like it's going to be very soft ground, so I think hopefully it'll be all right for you. Charlie.
Yeah, I came down with Jadumi. Like you say, he's been supplemented for this. He's on a roll as well. Won his last 3. I mean, the form of his Goodwood win, I think Finest Sound ran well in a Canadian Group 1. Escobar won a big handicap, and Mutasabek won a Group 2 at Newmarket next time. And I thought he was really impressive at Leopardstown. I also wonder if he's going to get an easy lead in this as well. I didn't see stacks of other pace in this race, and I don't know. I mean, Inspiral's a decent filly, no doubt. Modern Games a solid horse. I thought it was a race lacking a bit of X factor, if I'm being completely honest as well. I mean, maybe Inspiral will deliver a knockout performance, but I thought the rest of them are just solid horses without being sort of outstanding performers. And Jadumi, like I say, comes into this in the back of confidence high. His form's worked out well. He seems a very straightforward ride. And like I say, I couldn't see heaps of pace in the race. And I wonder if James Dordis will be able to get him out the gate and dictate his own terms. And yeah, he might justify the fact that they paid a few quid to put him in this race.
I'm with Inspiral purely because I thought she was priced up on the defeat in the Falmouth as opposed to what she's done in her career. I mean, that was undoubtedly disappointing, and I think Connections put it down to, you know, bringing her back too quickly off the back of a long old absence, although it was still 3 weeks off the track. But yeah, she was beaten at whatever it was, 1.2, hugely disappointing, no shorter. But she was good at Deauville last time. I thought she was electric at this track on the round course in the Coronation. I actually think this will suit her better, the straight course. So I thought odds against for her was just about big enough to get stuck into in Spiral. I think a cold ride on the straight course will really suit the way she tends to go about it. Hopefully from 9 she'll just tuck in, and I hope they don't crawl. But yeah, I think the straight course will suit her really well, and I thought she was a fair enough price. Okay,
she's the one with star quality, isn't she? You know, like she compared to the rest of the field, she is the one with the bit of X factor kind of like the rest of them are just solid horses, aren't they?
Yeah, Jadimi is massively progressive. Thought got a really good ride last time, but I tell you, he was really impressive last time. But
yeah,
we'll see. Right, let's move on to the Balmoral. So this is the Big Field Handicap. Prices are going to get a bit closer together, although not massively. Blue for You 9 to back, 9.4 to lay, 9.8 Migration, Tyrrhenian Sea 12.5. Bashka Rover is 10.5, Sweet Believer 11.0, 15.0 Symbolise, bigger prices the rest. All right. In fact, let's stay there because Steve, you're with Stormy Antarctic. What price we've got Stormy Antarctic? There he is, 22.0. I think this is going to be his last ever start as well, Steve.
Yeah, I was hoping it's a good one. I did back Stormy Antarctic to beat Jadumi in the Celebration Mile, because I thought it was a bad race, but it turned out to be quite a good race. But again, I was mad keen on Migration, but he's drawn 23. And I'm not liking that at all. And Stormy Antarctic is in stall 6, which could end up being a bit of an advantage. And this horse is running, he's age 9, and he's making his handicap debut, which is quite incredible. He's never run in a handicap before. And I just think it might suit him. He's the kind of horse that he loves soft ground. He stays further. So if they go quick and it turns into a real test, there's a lot of horses in here that are kind of 7 furlong mile kind of horses. They might just be found out of the final climb. And it ran all right at Goodwood in that Celebration Mile, finished 5th, but it just wasn't quite good enough. But that has worked out. It's a really good run. And last time he travelled like his old self at Ayr. He was left behind by Royal Champion in the closing stages, but Royal Champion is a really nice prospect. And he was splitting Yukon Glen and Marie's Diamond with Stormy Antarctic. Given that he travelled so well, the fast pace should be ideal. The soft ground is going to be ideal. And I think staying a bit further is ideal. So it's a bit of a chancy one because a lot of the horses that are fancied are drawn high. The likes of Blue for You and various other Astro Kings and the one. I don't like him on the ground, Mike. But yeah, I just thought I'd take a bit of a chance with Stormy Antarctic.
Okay, Stormy Antarctic for you at fair old price. Charlie, you've got a couple similar prices, I think.
Yeah, I put in Orban. He's drawn 14, so I think he's got options from there. You know, he's had a phenomenal year. I mean, he didn't really find winning very easy, and then won a glorious Goodwood, and then backed that up at Ascot. He ran great again at York, and then he was arguably unlucky back over 7s behind I'm a Gambler at Goodwood. You know, I think he put up £1, but back over a mile at Ascot that he likes so much. I just think he's a guaranteed to run his race. You know, Neil Callum that won him at Ascot is back on him tomorrow. And David O'Meara, I mean, it's not always easy picking the right one of his, but he is brilliant in these big field handicaps over a variety of trips. So yeah, I came down with Orban winning place. And then the other one I chucked in, and again, the draw is a negative, but I think she's a classy filly, is Basha Karova of William Haggis's. Tom Marquand rides her. going back to a form where she beat Potter at Epsom was really, really solid. And then she was sent off favourite for the Duke of Cambridge behind Saffron Beach, ran okay, beat 5 lengths, and then out behind Alflalia, York last time, similar sort of scenario. I think a bit of cut in the ground is really important to, and I think good to soft ground can see her in a better light. Again, she's a sort of horse that's slotted in anyway, so I'm hoping that Tom Marquand will be able to switch her more towards the middle. And she's a group horse in a handicap, and I just think with a bit of cut could just bring about a real strong performance from this filly.
Okay, I'll go with Takarib Bay, who might not be too far away from the front end. A 3-year-old who's got some really good form in the book, most notably. The I'm a Gambler form has worked out from Goodwood. I'm a Gambler going out winning again. The Tempest form, he's won a couple of races subsequently, and that came over course and distance. That was with cheap pieces on for the first time. They now change it up with blinkers on for the first time. Thought he was a big price. And Ross Collin, honestly, he's been so unlucky. I don't know if he's going to go and win necessarily, but I thought he's got a good record. I was going to say with James Doyle on board, but I'm now questioning that. No, he did win on him at Epsom. That was it, the year before last. And he's only ridden him once subsequently. And he was the wrong side at Ascot last time. Leopardstown, he got absolutely no run. He's capable of being competitive off this sort of mark. So there'd be my 2 against the field, both big prices. Trevor says Takarib Bay always won as well. And Giles says safe voyage if you put a line through his last run. Yeah, can see that. Okay. Other bets, first of all. Charlie, you've just got the one. Where's the other bet coming from?
Yeah, I've gone Accidental Legend at Stratford in the 249. Virgil O'Brien's horses are absolutely on fire, and this horse has been off since last March. Handicap debut off a mark of 94, tongue strap on for the first time. I mean, there's bits and pieces of his novice hurdle form where he ran okay to a level against horses that have ended up with, ratings over 100 anyway. And it's chancy, it's really chancy. But with the way the horses from this yard are going, it just intrigued me a little bit. And like I say, I'll be having a couple of quid on tomorrow, but I'll be watching on anyway with the future in mind. I think there's definitely races to be won with this horse off this sort of mark. And like I say, whether it'll be tomorrow or not, but it's worth keeping on. I think he's worth keeping on side over the next sort of, few weeks.
Accidental Legend 249 at Stratford. Let me remind you about the sign-up offer. It's a £30 welcome offer. Money back as a free bet if your first bet loses. The best way to support this podcast, genuinely, if you like our content, if you don't have a Matchbook account, is to open up an account and have a bet on horse racing. And if the bet doesn't cop, then you get your money back as a free bet up to £30. You've got to use the bonus code INSIGHTS30 to take advantage of that. Well worth doing, and you can have it on all different sports. Okay. Let's move on to best lays again. Just Charlie Post.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is like a real sort of speculative one, but I just put Emily up, John up, place lay. As in, I'm not convinced about the quality of the classic division. Nashua maybe aside from the Oaks, and didn't really. I mean, the way she went about it at Ascot in July wasn't pleasant. Really free, really sort of poor performance, timing all over the place. Yes, she's got a hood on, but it's going to be slow ground, or it's going to be slow-ish ground tomorrow. It's going to place a premium on stamina, and I just think there's some more hardened horses in here against her. And I do think it's one of those, if she switches off well, there's every chance she might go and win, but I think it's going to be one or the other. I just don't think she's going to run okay, and so I'm going to take her on the fact that the hood won't have enough of an effect. And yeah, she's going to fall out the back of the screen.
5.0, she's in the win market, so she could be around about 2.0 short or shorter in the place market. So Emily Upjohn, place lay. And best bets, worth having a bit of a last hurrah here. So because it's the last one of the £25 free bets, £1,000. £25 charity bets, £1,000 guarantee for racing welfare. I'm going to have a couple. I'm going to go Ross Collin in the Balmoral at a big. I'm not going to go Ross Collin in the Balmoral. I'm going to go Takarib Bay in the Balmoral, and I'm going to go Castle Star in the Sprint as well. I think it's a big price. Steve?
I didn't realise we were allowed to. I'm going for Stay Alert in the fillies in theirs.
Team Steam, Stay Alert. I'm glad she's in there. And Charlie?
I'd have Kinross in the Sprint. Like I say, absolutely hosed up last time at Longchamp, and I'm backing him to continue his sort of roll of good form.
Great stuff. Charlie, Steve, thank you very much indeed. Thanks, everyone. Make sure to check out our podcast next week, which is going to be the showcase meeting. And throughout the week, we'll be putting out episodes 1 and 2 of our Jumpers to Follow podcast, where we're 4 from 4. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. Let us know your best bets for Kipco British Champions Day in the comments, even if you're watching on recording. And most of all, have a successful day. Bye-bye.